Hello, you are watching Shalom World News. I'm Marina Grosser from Washington, D.C. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. The head of the Italian Episcopate, Cardinal Matteo Zuppi, had a meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden on July 18th. The peace envoy of Pope Francis and his delegation were received in the White House, and during his meeting with the president, the cardinal handed over a letter of the Holy Father to Biden. In the letter, the Pope stressed his sorrow for the suffering caused by the war in Ukraine. The meeting of Cardinal Zuppi and President Biden began after 5 p.m. local time and went on for an hour. The Holy See press office said in a statement that during the meeting, readiness was assured to support humanitarian initiatives, especially for children and those who are fragile. The following day, Cardinal Zuppi and the delegation attended a prayer breakfast at Congress. During the meeting, he briefed the attendees on the meetings he had during various stages of his peace mission. In a meeting on Tuesday, activists for religious freedom informed U.S. Congress members about the dire situation of religious freedom in several nations. Human rights activists invited attention to several countries, including Nicaragua, India, and Nigeria, where they said the international community and the United States have mostly ignored atrocities. The hearing was held by the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Global Health, Global Human Rights, and International Organizations, and it was presided over by a Republican congressman from New Jersey, Congressman Chris Smith. He said that billions of people around the world are not able to practice their faith freely. Smith said assaults on religious freedom are a major threat to U.S. national security and that the State Department isn't using all the instruments at its disposal to hold responsible parties accountable. A recent study by the International Society for Civil Liberties and Rule of Law show more than 50 armed groups have emerged in Nigeria since 2015 with the intention of attacking Christians. The majority of them are jihadist formations. The Intersociety report shows there are now more than 50 armed militia organizations as of July 2023, up from 3 in May 2015. The report states that there are more than 15 splinter groups among jihadist Fulani bandits alone, and more than 5 among jihadist Fulani herdsmen, including indigenous Fulani jihadists and regionally assembled jihadists comprising Fulanis from neighboring African countries. The study states that there are also jihadist groups and mercenaries assembled from Libya, Sudan, and other countries in Africa. Intersociety also condemned the spread of jihadism in Africa, which aims to drive Christians from their homeland. The third World Day of Grandparents and the Elderly will be observed on July 23rd. This year's theme is His Mercy Extends from Generation to Generation. On this day, Pope Francis will preside over Mass in St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican at 10 a.m. local time. This Eucharistic service will include more than 6,000 attendees, many of whom will be elderly Italians attending with their families. According to the Dicastery for the Laity, Family, and Life, 5 senior people representing the 5 continents will symbolically hand over the World Youth Day Pilgrim Cross to 5 young people as they depart for Lisbon after Holy Mass. This action symbolizes the promise made by the elderly and grandparents to the Holy Father to pray for the young people attending the 2023 World Youth Day in Lisbon. This week, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin's administration released new education policies that affirm that parents in Virginia will have extensive control over their children while they are enrolled in public schools. The state also answered several important questions regarding the treatment of so-called transgender students by schools. According to the government's new model policies, education regulations shall be drafted to safeguard parents' rights concerning their children and to facilitate the exercise of those rights. The policy states that schools shall respect parents' values and beliefs, allowing them to make the best decisions for their children. The guidelines come after years of heated discussion in Virginia and other states on how far school authorities can incorporate transgender ideology in classrooms. Kenya's Catholic bishops are denouncing the police brutality against innocent civilians during protests. They are also urging law enforcement to target criminals who infiltrate anti-government protests. Members of the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops released a joint statement saying that they are aware that some criminals hide among demonstrators to damage property, rob, cause harm, or even kill people as part of their nefarious plans. They said in order to guarantee legal procedures during peaceful demonstrations, the police should target these individuals. The bishop said police cannot take advantage of the situation to brutalize innocent Kenyans. Such acts are unacceptable and must not be tolerated under any circumstance. Their 16-page statement asserts that police brutality violates the fundamental tenets of justice, human rights, and the rule of law. They also expressed their solidarity with those who suffered abuse during earlier demonstrations that left numerous people dead and significant property damage. In the United States of America, attacks on Catholic churches and establishments are still continuing. In the latest incident, a church in northeast El Paso in Texas was found vandalized on Monday. The Catholic Diocese of El Paso confirmed that the Most Holy Trinity Catholic Church was vandalized early on Monday. More details have not been disclosed as the investigation is still underway. There are also no details regarding the extent of damage to the church. Police said they are cooperating with the parish to pursue the culprit. In a Facebook post, the parish said it was cooperating with police and sought the prayers of believers. Since the Black Lives Matter agitations across America in 2020, more than 300 churches and shrines have been attacked, and such incidents are still being reported. On June 16th, two miscreants were caught on camera scribbling anti-Catholic graffiti on the walls of the Annunciation Catholic School in Denver. A British think tank is urging lawmakers to prescribe tougher sanctions on the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps. The demand was made by the Henry Jackson Society, or HJS, as the UN sanctions limiting Iran's missile program expire in October this year. The report from HJS is the second in 2 days seeking tougher sanctions on the Islamic Republic. Independent reviewer of terrorism Jonathan Hall said that the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps or support for the group could be sanctioned by means of a simple amendment to the National Security Act. The intervention by HJS comes after another center-right think tank named Policy Exchange said Britain needed a policy on Iran that recognized the Revolutionary Guards as a state sponsor of terrorism. At present, the British government has proscribed 76 groups, and most of them are Islamist groups. However, none of them are seen as part of the state. Members of Russia's Federal Council have unanimously voted in favor of a bill that severely restricts so-called gender reassignment interventions. On Wednesday, members voted in support of the bill that was already approved by the Duma last week. It will go into effect once President Vladimir Putin signs it. It proposes gender change procedures only in rare cases and excludes people experiencing gender dysphoria. It stipulates that only when children suffer congenital physiological anomalies can such interventions be allowed. A medical commission will also have to examine such cases before giving permission. The proposed bill also mandates that a marriage can be dissolved if a spouse changes his or her gender. Once it is enacted, the new law will also prevent a person who changes gender from adopting a child. In Canada, there were more assisted suicides in 2021 than there were executions in the United States since the 1970s. A Reuters report about the amendment to Canada's law mandating assisted suicide reveals that over 10,000 people died from assisted suicide that year. In less than a year, the law will be updated to include citizens suffering from mental illness. The Death Penalty Information Center reports that in the United States, 1,571 men and women have been executed since the 1970s. Only 917 prisoners have been put to death since 2000. Critics claim that it is too difficult to determine if most mental illnesses are incurable. They further claim it is nearly impossible to differentiate between suicidal ideations and a rational desire to die. The new clause allowing assisted suicide for people with mental health conditions will make the Canadian law one of the broadest in the world. In the Holy Land, the foundation in charge of the Western Wall, sacred to Jews, has issued an apology after a worker told the Catholic abbot to cover his pectoral cross. While visiting the site on July 19th, Abbot Nicodemus Schnabel of the Benedictine Abbey was approached by a worker who curtly told him that his pectoral cross was big and inappropriate for the Jewish site, and he needed to respect that. The head of the abbey replied that the request was harsh, adding that he was not in any provocation as the cross was part of his dress code as a Roman Catholic abbot. When the video of the incident was shared by the German daily Der Spiegel, the Western Wall Heritage Foundation tendered an apology, saying the wall was open to all and that there were no regulations regarding this matter. Two American archbishops are leading a pilgrimage of peace to Japan, advocating the global abolition of nuclear weapons and the development of a peaceful world. Archbishops John Wester of Santa Fe and Paul Etienne of Seattle are leading the group, aiming to forge closer links with the bishops of Japan. With 2 weapons laboratories and the biggest nuclear weapons repository in the country, the Archdiocese of Santa Fe is located in a state that spends the most money on nuclear weapons per person. The delegation will depart for the pilgrimage on July 31st, halting in Tokyo, Akita, Kyoto, Hiroshima, and Nagasaki. They will return to the States on August 12th. The delegation will also visit the dioceses of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They will also pray a novena for peace from August 1st to August 9th, the anniversary of the dropping of the atomic bomb on Nagasaki in 1945. In what is seen as a positive move, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has pardoned a Coptic Christian rights researcher who was accused of spreading false news. Patrick Zaki was pardoned on Wednesday, a day after he was given 3 years imprisonment by an Egyptian court over an article in which he described the discrimination faced by the Coptic Christians in the Muslim-majority country. A student of the University of Bologna in Italy, Zaki was arrested in February 2020 when he arrived in Cairo to visit his family. According to the government-run Al-Aram Daily, the president also pardoned El Bakr, the attorney of well-known political prisoner Alaa Abdel Fattah. The pardon came after the U.S. Department of State expressed concern over the jail sentence given to the Coptic Christian. It also urged the government to immediately free him, along with others who are unjustly incarcerated. With hardly 2 weeks left until the start of World Youth Day in Lisbon, the Portuguese Postal Department has come out with a second exclusive series of stamps dedicated to the biggest gathering of the youth in the Catholic world. Correios de Portugal issued the 2 stamps on July 19th, and they represent Pope Francis and the symbols of World Youth Day, such as the Pilgrim Cross and the icon of Our Lady Salus Populi Romani. The Postal Department said 75,000 copies of each stamp have been printed for the occasion. Meanwhile, 18 exhibitions will be arranged from August 1st to 6th in Lisbon as part of World Youth Day. They will be spread out around several venues for young people to visit. The themes range from ecology inspired by the Pope's Laudato Si encyclical to the lives of the saints. There will also be expos dedicated to the patrons of the event, St. Anthony of Padua and Blessed Marcel Callo. And those are your latest headlines. Join us again tomorrow for more. You can also visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.